Well, for market movers, we're going to focus on earnings that have been released in the past hour or so, Pepsico and Delta Airlines. We start with Pepsico. It reported organic revenue growth of 1.3% for the third quarter. Well, that was below analyst expectations. Basically, US shoppers purchased fewer processed snacks and sugary sodas. Its Q3 earnings per share of $2.29 did beat the street. However, shares were a little bit up on the news in pre-market, as you can see, just below 2% there. Now, the owner of Lay's, Gatorade and Quaker Oats has been trying to keep up with shifting consumer tastes by expanding its healthier, high-protein and portion-controlled offerings. Over the year, its shares are down, however, as it is also facing pressure from economic uncertainty and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s health agenda. And don't forget, activist investor Elliott Investment Management last month took a roughly $4 billion stake and called on it to review and streamline its snack portfolio. Okay, let's move on to Delta now. And it reported better than expected earnings for the third quarter, helped by leisure travellers and a rebound in corporate travel. The markets seem to like what they heard and shares are up sharply in the pre-market. The carrier predicted continued strong demand into next year, with full-year earnings per share expected to be about $6, ahead of analyst consensus. Okay, well, to get more on those earnings from Delta and Pepsico, I'm joined by Michael Landsberg, Chief Investment Officer at the private wealth management firm Landsberg Bennett. Michael, thanks so much for joining us. Well, let's start with Pepsico. The markets initially seemed unmoved by those results, but are now starting to pick up a bit. How are you feeling about them?
Ramsey, I think what's interesting is they beat expectations, but reality is they made $2.31 a year ago quarter. They made $2.29 now. That's not at beating expectations. I don't focus on expectations. I focus on reported growth or reported earnings, and there is none. I mean, they're actually going backwards. And I think there's some pressure, obviously, RFK and the sugary snacks, as you mentioned. But also their statement was basically to tell Elliott, hey, we're looking at stuff and don't buy more shares. They seem to be more concerned with an activist investor. I think right now it's a stock you probably want to stay away from because the earnings are not really, the growth's not there. And I think at the same time, there's better places to put your money in that space.
What about Delta, though? What do you make of those results? They beat expectations, but as you say, you're not a man who looks at expectations. You want to see actual real numbers here.
Well, that was, for example, they earned $1.53 a year ago. They made $1.71 now. That's double-digit earnings growth. For a stock that trades at basically 8 or 9 times earnings, it's a cheap stock here. I think Delta's done a really nice job. The premium cabin, that's their market. They go after high-end, affluent customers. They spend money. They seem to be a little bit more insulated from any economic shocks. And I think they continue to do really well in that space. It's a tough space. Obviously, 50% of their, the costs are basically from comp for salaries and fuel. So I think they've got a lot of those things under control. Great management team. So yeah, if it's an airline space, this is really the one to own.
You say it's a tough space. It's probably got a little bit tougher over the last week or so. The Federal Aviation Administration delayed flights for a third straight day yesterday. Just how damaging is this time for the big 3 airlines during this government shutdown?
I think what's been good is they've kind of right-sized their schedules in the last couple of years. So I think what happens is they don't have as many flights. So I think all the flights that they do have, they're money-making, to the extent that they've got full flights. We know that when you get on a plane, there's not a lot of empty seats. You hear them calling and telling people you got to check their bags at the gate. So I think that's a positive from the standpoint. I think they're well positioned. I think in the comments from the CEO of Delta, he said there's not really any effects at all. If it drags on for weeks and weeks, I think so. I flew last week and didn't notice anything different. Plane was full. It happened to be a Delta flight. TSA moved pretty quickly. So knock on wood, things are pretty good there. But obviously the industry just had a bankruptcy with Spirit. So it's a tough market if you're not a good operator.
Michael Landsberg from Landsberg Bennett. Many thanks for your thoughts.